to start. Hey, everyone. It's very exciting. All four of us are here at the Capitol. Is it the Capitol Challenge, Karen? Is that the name of it?
The Capitol
We're here
Classic.
Yes, and we're all playing in the backgammon tournament starting tomorrow, but we're also taping Julius's part 2 of his presentation to us. Part 1 is right above you on your YouTube screen, and it focuses on cube action. And now today, he's going to be working on the checker combination. So Karen, can you do the quick review of what we're up to and introduce Julius?
Backgammon Winning Women is committed to helping women participate and play and competitive backgammon, and to be preeminent in the winner's circle. We think that the primary way to improve your game is to analyze your own mistakes. We've been very pleased to pay for the recording, transcription, and preparation of files in the software package Extreme Gammon at 4 major American Backgammon Tour events this year. The Cherry Blossom, the Michigan Tournament, the Sunny Florida Tournament, and the Denver Wild West Tournament. All of the women who have played in those events have received files from the Extreme Gammon software of their matches in those events. And the purpose of this session with Julius High, the Director of Tournament Services for the American Backgammon Tour, is to help women and everyone really understand what to do with Extreme Gammon files, how to manipulate those files to identify your cube and checker decisions. Part 1 of this series, Julius has explained how to download those matches, review those matches, and how to identify and correct your cube errors. In this part 2, Julius will be walking us through the ways you can identify your checker mistakes and some tools that you can use to prevent those mistakes in the beginning as you review your files. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Julius High again to lead us through this presentation.
Hello, winning women in backgammon. We're going to continue to now with some common checker play errors that I was able to discover. The first one and we're going to talk about is breaking anchors. So oftentimes you're playing a holding game. And in the holding game, you have an anchor in your opponent's board. An anchor is basically just a point in your opponent's inner board. But eventually, you have to break this anchor. And it's very important to break this anchor at the right time, because once you break this anchor, you can't go back. Like your checkers are going forward and you can seldom remake it. So it's a major decision. So whenever you break this anchor, you want to take extra time to analyze this decision. I know oftentimes we're playing with clocks, but this is one of those key times. And if you break your anchor at the wrong time, meaning you break the anchor too early, or you don't break the anchor when you should, XG will penalize you for this here. And generally, this is one of your, if you do get an error or blunder, it's generally one of the higher ones. So take the extra time. So we're going to look at a couple of positions here. So notice in this position right here, it's a little interesting in that both green and red are on the bar, but green is on the roll right here. And notice green has rolled a 6-4. So the 4 is going to have to come in. And when that checker comes in, notice you will have an anchor on your opponent's 4-point. So now you have to make a decision. Should you break this anchor or should you stay there? Very important. So we're going to use the same technique that we used when we were using Pratt. When we used Pratt, we had to determine the race. And the way we did that was with using the concept of counting crossovers. So first thing you want to do is move the checkers. So I have moved that checker that was on the bar. It came in on the 4, and then the anchor was broken, and then that checker is now sitting on the 15-point. So when you count crossovers, it's very important to leave a gap underneath the checker that you move. So let's say under the 15, the green checker on the 15-point, you want to leave a small gap there. That way you know you move that checker. And then in case you have to put it back, you know which one you moved. So once it's there, then we start the process of counting crossovers. So any checker, so when we count crossovers, basically we want to use this mechanic. Number 1, you move the checker and then you leave the gap. Number 2, you count your crossovers, and then you count your opponent's crossovers. And you want to start from the rear. So this checker that's on the 21-point, it will require 3 crossovers to get home. And any checker that is in your opponent's outer board will take 2 crossovers to get home. And then any checkers that are in your outer board will take 1 to get out. So if I was to count green's crossovers, starting on the 21, that would be 3 crossovers. Those 3 checkers that are in the outer board there, each one of those is 2. So 3 plus 6 is 9. And then you have these 4 that are down there in your outer board. So 3 plus 6 plus 4 is a total of 13 crossovers. Now, so next we're going to count red's crossovers. Notice red has a checker on the bar. So any checker on the bar, that's 4 crossovers to get it home. And then you have the 3 checkers that are down there in your inner board. Each one of those is 3. So anyway, you have 4 plus 3 times 3 is 9. So you're up to 13. And then you notice red has 7 checkers in their outer board. So 13 plus 7 is 20. So if you do, so now you find out, oh, I have 13 crossovers and red has 20 crossovers. So whoever has the less is ahead. So you as green are ahead in the race. And that's the number 1 criteria for breaking your anchors, that you need to be ahead in the race. There's also another criteria which says you want to break your anchor before you break your midpoint, because if you break your midpoint, then those checkers get stranded back there. So anyway, that's the technique. So now let's take a look at another example. This is position 2 right here. If you look at this position right here, once again, you have to make the choice, should I break my anchor? And you notice you rolled a 5-2. And it looks like it's real convenient that you can break your anchor and also safety that checker on your 13-point. But is that correct? Well, once again, we're going to move the checkers first. We're going to leave a gap on that checker that's on the 13. This is what it would look like. And then we're going to count our crossovers. So for green, you will notice that he has 1 checker on the 20-point, which is 3 crossovers, plus the 6 in your opponent's outfield right here. That's 9. And then 1 is 10. So green has 10 crossovers. If I count red's crossovers, notice he has 2 in your outfield. So that's 4 plus the 5 down there. Red has 9. So wow. Green has 10 and red has 9. So you are actually behind in the race. So if you're behind in the race, you do not want to break your anchor. And this is what XG did. XG basically broke the midpoint right here. And basically your strategy now is to try to make your 5-point and build a prime and hopefully ambush one of Red's checkers as they're going around. But the main thing is this is the technique for assessing breaking anchors. All right, let's move on to the next thing. This here is one of the most common errors and blunders that I see for all players, and especially for people who are typically ranked as intermediate players. What happens is that oftentimes when you don't count the pips, you don't know if you're ahead or behind in the race. And if you were to use counting crossovers, you can use that method to assess if you are either ahead or behind in the race. But this concept right here is, the idea is that if you are ahead in the race, the only way that your opponent can catch up with you is either to roll like large doubles or to hit one of your blots. So you want to make it more difficult for them to catch up. And the way you do that is, number one, you reduce blots. Blots are targets that they can hit. So if there's 0 blots, they can't hit you. And then you won't lose all those pips in the race. But sometimes you can't play safe. And when you can't play completely safe, then you have to reduce the shots. And the shots are basically, if you make play A, on the next roll, your opponent can hit you with X amount of shots. But if you make play B, he can hit you with, once again, X amount of shots. But ideally, you want to leave your opponent the least amount of shots to hit you. So let's take a look at some examples. Oftentimes, this occurs when you roll a large double. In this case right here, green rolled a double 4. So the idea is that if you're ahead in the race, once again, you want to run, but if you're behind in the race, once again, you want to stay back. So how do you determine that? So in this position right here, this is the move that green chose right here. But the idea, once again, is that you want to make the move, leaving a gap underneath there, and then you want to count the crossovers. So this is what that move looks like right here. So if you were to count the crossovers for green, and you will get, if you do this the same way every time, you will find that you can count these very quickly. So the checker on the 24, we know that's a 3. Those 4 checkers in the outfield, we know that's an 8. So we're up to 11 plus 2 more is 13 very quickly. If I was to count red, I would say the one on the bar is 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. And these other 4 down here are 18. So as you can see, green is ahead in the race. So then you might want to put your checkers back and see if they're, now that you know that you're ahead, you know you want to run. And you don't want to leave this checker on your 24 like isolated back here because you found out that you're ahead. So now let's take a look. So this is a recommended move by XG. Notice you moved up that checker that was on your 24 to your 20 point. So now it's at the base of the red short primes. It can jump over there. And you've also made these blocking points out here in the outfield. So you move 1 to 1410 and 1392. But, and you're still playing just with this one blot right here. But when the 1 was sitting on the 24 point, it could be hit by a 1 and a 5. Here it could basically just be hit with the 1. Otherwise, he would have to break his prime right there. So anyway, once again, the idea is to reduce the number of blots. We're just playing with one blot, but we have less shots right here. Okay. This is position 2. This is another example of reducing blots and shots. So let's say, notice in this position right here, green is on the bar. So the 4 is automatically played, come in on the 21 point. So now, should I run with that blot, or should I do something else, like play like 13-7 and hit that blot over there? I see this lots of times, even with top players. So over the board, green chose to attack and go 13-7 and hit that checker right there. And this is what the resulting position looks like. So once again, we're going to count blots and shots right here. I'm sorry, we're going to count the crossovers. So I have the one checker of the 21, which is 4, plus 3 over there is 6, 10, plus these 6 over here. I come up with a total of 15 crossovers. And if I count them for red, it's going to come up to 21. But anyway, once you've determined that, you see that green is well ahead in the race. So when you're well ahead in the race, what you will find, if you continue to study positions like this here, it's often better to just maintain that race. And the way you maintain it is by not giving your opponent all of these shots to hit you back. Because on this position right now, like let's say red comes in on the 1, he can hit you with a 1-6, a 1-5, a 1-2, 2-5, 3-4, etc. There are many return shots right there. And if he hits you, you will find that if you come off the bar and hit somebody, you're going to lose like 25 pips in the race, and all of a sudden you're behind. So using this concept right here, the idea is once you determine you're ahead, just try to reduce your blots, number 1, and then reduce shots. And the correct move is actually to run with that checker. Now notice you only have 1 blot. The other way you had 2 blots. So once again, reduce blots. Blots are targets. You only got 1 blot now. That's better. You also have less shots for your opponent to hit you with right here. And once again, if you were to count the crossovers, you will see you get 15 and 19. So that's the concept of reducing blots and shots when you're ahead. But now let's say you count your crossovers and you find out that you're behind in the race. So what should you do then? So when you're behind in your race, your game plan is to stay back as far as possible, because you can't put your checkers backwards. So once you move them up there, your opponent can just jump over you and play safely behind you with any of their awkward rolls. So you want to stay back as far as possible, because basically as long as you can maintain contact with your opponent, oftentimes you leave a blot and then they hit it. But when you move up, you help them out. So once again, let's take a look at this position right here. You're green and you just rolled a 2-2. And you have many choices, especially when you roll doubles. But you have an anchor on your opponent's 5 point. So the question is, should I move my anchor up to their 18 point with the first 2 right here? Or should you maybe point on them? Like you can make your 4 point pointing on them and bringing the checker back over here. So how do we decide that? Once again, you move the checkers and take a look at it. So let's say green did move up to the 18 point. We left a gap under there, and he brought 2 checkers down from the midpoint. So then we stop and we count the crossovers. If we count the crossovers, you'll find out that green has 15 crossovers and red has 12 crossovers. So if green has more crossovers, that means he's behind in the race. So what does that mean? You're better off to stay back with your rearmost checkers. So that means you need to put those checkers back on the 20 point and look for an alternative play. So this is what XG recommended you do. It recommended that you pointed on the 4 point and you brought a checker down from the midpoint. But the real key here is that by counting the crossovers and finding out you're behind, you want to stay back. And this will help you lead to more wins. Let's look at one more of these here. This is another example right here. You notice green rolled a 6-1. So what should he do? You notice he has this one checker back on his 23 point. Should he run him out here or should you leave him back here? Or should you just play deep into your inner board over here? Well, how do we decide that? The same way as usual. We count the crossovers. So let's say green incorrectly in this position right here brought the 6 out. And when it's out here in the outfield, I guess it kind of challenges red's checkers out here. But when we count the crossovers, you will find out that now green has 15 crossovers and red has 12. So using this methodology, that would tell you, hey, I'm behind, therefore I need to stay back with my rearmost checkers, which are those 3 checkers in his inner board right there. Because if not, now red can safely jump over your anchor right here. And he can play awkward moves on red's 4 point, 3 point, 2 point, and 1 point, which is to your disadvantage. So this is the correct move recommended by XG. For you personally, you should put the checker back since you're behind. And now you should look for alternative plays. So basically when you're behind, your strategy is to build a prime, the strongest one possible, so that when you do get a hit, you can contain that checker. So anyway, that is today's presentation and part 2. And once again, these are the 3 main common errors that I see intermediate players making, and also even open level and championship level players. Oftentimes they don't count all the time. They have a lot more experience and they just kind of move things. But this is a simple method that you can use. Any questions at this time? If there's no question, that concludes today's presentation, and thank you very much. Please use these techniques and see you on the backgammon table.
Yes, we'll see everybody on the backgammon table. Thanks, Julius, for doing this amazing combination of 2 presentations. We're so grateful, and I'll see you downstairs.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody, and we're wrapping up. Okay.